Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to Mechabellum. Arclights are monsters, and in today's video I want to prove that and show you guys what these little dudes are capable of given the right circumstances. Now, what do I like to run on these units? I am currently running Range, Elite, EMP and Armor Enhancement. I think Range, Elite and EMP are mandatory, and then you kind of have a fourth slot available to, well, put whatever you want there. You can try and run Charge Shot, you can run anti-aircraft ammunition if you want. I like Armor Enhancement because Charge Shot, even though it does give that bonus damage, it also decreases attack speed and it makes the Arclights not shaft clear that well anymore, which I don't really like. And if you get levels on your Arclights, then oftentimes you'll just have enough with Range and Elite. Anti-aircraft ammunition is also fine, but it will often be like a fourth tech type of thing. And usually I would rather just get a different unit as my anti-air unit, because if I rely on my Arclights to chaff clear, to kill the big things, and to kill the air, they are probably going to be overwhelmed. So that's my reasoning here for armor. It works very well, against stuff like Typhoon, like Mustang, like Fire Badgers, Vulcan sometimes even, and in the right situation, it can completely turn the tide. So yeah, that's what I like to run. Either way, let's get straight into this game and show you guys what Arclights are capable of. Alright, here we are. Now, in this game, when I have a look at the packs, I think Fire Sayer spec is probably the best, but 3600 hit points, it's really on the low side and it's not really my thing. I think Fire Badger spec here is completely fine too, but I don't really want to be playing Stormcallers, and I kind of like having chaff to start with. And if you know me, Elite Specialist holds a special place in my heart, so I can't really say no to it, even though it's not a pack that I really like. I think Fang Steel Ball is a bit of an awkward opener. The Fangs are much slower than the Steel Balls, so they tend to not tank, which can create some awkward scenarios. They also don't walk in at the same speed, so there's a bit of a... You often have a tough time coordinating your pieces, but hey, I get 5,500 hit points to start with, so even if we have a bit of a difficult early game, you know, I should be able to get past it and use my hit points that way. Now, on the other side, there is Crawler Mustang, which has long been considered one of the worst packs in the game because it struggles clearing crawlers and it also just kind of loses to Arclights and sledges. And yeah, this immediately opens up the door here for me to go into Arclights. When I see this pack, I already know that these are going to have a good time. I'm Elite spec, so I already recruit them at level 2, which helps even more getting them to that stage where, you know, they'll be a real menace with things like Elite Marksman. So here you see me position in a way where I already know that Steel Balls aren't going to be that useful. At least in the early game, because, well, they don't like fighting chaff, they don't like fighting Mustangs, but Arclights do, and so that's going to be the main focus, at least for the first rounds here. See if I can get Arclights to work. My opponent is Fortified spec, so what this does is that the Arclights, if they're equal level to the Mustangs, cannot one-shot them. That can be awkward, but at least for now I should be able to stay ahead, and it's somewhat unlikely that the Mustangs will level early on because of how strong these Arclights are going to be. And yeah, you can see that they're just chewing through the entire side by themselves. The Steel Balls did a good job there of tanking. I say that the Mustangs won't level, but they do manage to take out that Arclight, which means that they nearly level up because of the amount of experience that these guys give away, but not quite. And at the same time, it's not the worst, right? Like, if the Mustangs level, they probably still are going to die to the Arclights, which means that the Arclights get more experience and they level in turn. And, well, Arclights do have access to scaling techs like Elite. Mustangs do not. So, in the long run, it should still be good for me. Round 2, we get 3 units. Sabertooth here is a great pickup for my opponent. It gives him some of that front line and a unit that is going to be tough to kill for my Arclights in the early game. And, well, that can also just simply one-shot Arclights. Here, Tarantula doesn't make too much sense, even though it is good into Mustang. It's not great into Saber. It doesn't address the air situation here, because obviously I have no anti-air, so Phantom Rays and Wasps are both problematic. I need to kind of think about that. Plus, I already have chaff clear units, so going Tarantula, I didn't really see it. Sabertooth is fine. I can go for that, but I would have to respect the air a little bit here. So I do decide to go for Sabertooth. And in all honesty, I think Phantom Ray here would have maybe made more sense. But I was expecting my opponents to also consider maybe going Wasp. And Phantom Ray is bad into Wasp. And then Wasp is not that great into Mustang. I could have gone for it because level 2 Wasp is still usually going to win out into level 1 Mustangs, especially when they don't have range, but I didn't really know. So instead what I do here is I just sell out of the Sabertooth as it was the highest value pack, and I simply buy a Mustang to try and deal with the potential Wasp or Phantom Ray my opponent could have picked, and I add another Arclight to the mix. Now, of course, I get to see that my opponent simply went for Sabertooth, but there was a lot of options here, and I kind of just wanted to be able to play around most of them. Mustang isn't bad for me here. My opponent doesn't have Arclights or anything, and Mustang v Mustang, I mean, I should win that mirror considering that I have the level advantage. We are struggling a little bit here, though. This guy's a bit too tanky, and sadly, the Sabertooth on the right locks onto both my Arclights, and yeah, you can see how efficient they can be as they take out all of my units and instantly level on top of things. So this is getting scary now. We have instant level 2 here on the Sabertooth that my opponent purchased, and instant level 3 on the one he picked up. Mustang's also picking up a level there. Round 3, nothing here looks too tempting. I don't want to play Improved Tarantula for the same reason I didn't want to pick it from the free units. And I'm not a big fan of Supply Enhancement. You can pick it on round 3. I think that's completely fine, but it's also fine to skip it. It takes 3 rounds for this spell to pay back for itself. So you need round 4, 5, 6. And then on round 7, you start making 50 additional supplies. But until then, you'll be behind. And honestly, like 50 additional supplies on round 7 and onwards is not that impressive. Like it's not going to change the outcome of the game. So usually I'm just going to skip and keep my money in the early game when, you know, paying for a 150 cost card is likely just better going to be used on the board at that stage because it's quite a significant amount of the resources you get early on. Opponent does decide to go for it though, gets the levels there, adds more chaff by the looks of it. Fang all the way in the back. And another Fang over here. But you can see that was not a very impressive round, right? Like, he just goes double chaff and levels the sabers, and he's already out of money. Whereas I get to go range on the Arclights and purchase 2 more Arclights. One here in the corner to try and deal with this, and also pull these crawlers behind the tower. Really nice use of the shallow flank there, and add another one over here to be able to deal with the main advance. Now, this is a bit greedy by me, right? I'm just hoping that the Arclights, maybe the steel balls, can deal with this saber. But you'd be surprised, and I honestly will be surprised at how powerful Arclights can be. Ever since they got changed, where their attack interval went from 1.1 seconds down to 0.9, they've been showing up a lot. If people are not playing spiders, they will be playing Arclights. And I mean, they kind of have to, but just look at this. There was a level 3 Sabertooth there, but it's simply vanished. Now, Mustangs here are doing great as well. They're adding to that DPS and allowing me to get rid of the Saber, but you wouldn't expect this from a board that doesn't really have dedicated single target DPS. Mustang is a bit of a hybrid unit, and Arclight is, generally speaking, a Shafter unit. And yet, here we are. And so we win a round that we probably shouldn't. Also thanks to the clever investment we've made, right? Skipping cards allows us to get range, which allows us to get ahead, but this is quite massive. And we get a bunch of levels, which is going to be that much more important, as it allows us to transition into Elite Marksman and get those bonuses early on. Now here, both of us go for Efficient Light Manufacturing on round 4. If you're elite, but also if you just want to play small units, it's definitely worth a pickup. It starts paying back for itself almost immediately, even though it is a bit of an expensive card. And I mean, here, what can you do but just buy more Arclights? And so that's exactly what we do. We buy more Arclights. We buy one Mustang pack to try and get a bit of symmetry going. And we get the levels on the Arclights that have the levels available. But I mean, look at this. The Arclight that spawned in the shallow flank dies, but the other one on the left side is just absolutely demolishing that side. And my opponent here really should have probably added some Sabertooth to just tank, right? Lock up the Arclight. But now I'm getting ahead even more. Like, these Arclights are picking up so much experience. Everything is almost level 3 by now. And instead my opponent bought more Mustangs and got range, but Mustang into Arclight is not a good matchup. Now here, additional deployment slot is lovely. Allows me to get even more value out of the efficient light manufacturing. Same thing for my opponent, so that's why he picks it up. But Elite Hacker is an option here. He does have the Mustang. Mustang Hacker is a classic combination, works well, and can be really good into Arclight, but it is a bit expensive, so I get that he wants to go for this, and I mean, it's hard to not take additional deployment slot. It's just almost always good. And yeah, okay, here now you see what I was talking about. My opponent blocking the Arclights, making sure that they shoot at the Sabertooth, which is going to be much harder to kill. But I kind of expect this, and so I add the crawlers there to protect the Arclights, make sure that they don't get insta-locked and immediately die. We grab the levels again on the Arclights where possible. We level the Mustangs and we grab more chaff because I do need a bit more chaff. Crawlers here are going to be great. My opponent is relying on Mustangs to clear. And despite the crawler nerfs to their hit points, they're still going to be hard to kill for Mustangs, especially when they're only level 1. And that's a big part of this as well. If the Arclights are getting ahead and killing the Mustangs, you keep the Mustangs from leveling, which is oftentimes going to be their entry into the game. Like, they need to get the level 2, the level 3 to really become a menace. But I mean, look at these are just normal Arclights. Well, normal Arclights. They're level 3, but they don't have Elite Marksman, and they just took out 2 Sabers already. Never mind left side. That's just collapsed. And right side is looking a bit worse. It does have those level 3 Mustangs. But still, like, this is not a bad round. Arclight here. Farming up a Storm. Level 4 available next turn. And keep in mind, I still have 5,100 hit points available. Speed things up a little bit here, but Arclight will fall. Which means Sabertooths will level. Now, round 6, we get 3 unit reinforcements. Here I was a bit on the fence. I didn't really know what to pick. Overlord didn't seem that good into Mustang. Melting Point is a little bit awkward. I mean, it's good into things like Sandworm and Overlord, I guess, but it's just a bit odd. Like, none of this really was that good. I guess Farseer was fine. Just an all-around decent unit, and Worm would be really bad into things like the Sabers. So I decided to go for the Melter, because I might need some help with the Sabers here. We were struggling last turn. So I pick it up, and I just throw it onto the right side. My opponent goes for Field Maintenance, which is definitely going to be a problem. I go for Elite Marksman, though, so we do have that bonus damage. Right, 88% bonus attack here on the level 4 Arclights, and they get a bit of extra range as well. 20 on the level 4s, 5 per rank. Not a bad thing at all. But yeah, I think none of those were that good, so I'm keeping the Melting Point on the board and kind of just judging, like, am I going to need to invest into more Melting Points here? Are we just going to be fine with the Arclights? And when I saw Field Maintenance, I also thought, well, I run Electromagnetic Shot for this very reason, right? Being able to disable techs like this might just mean that these Arclights are going to be way more efficient than something like a Melter. Not a good round, though. The Field Maintenance definitely caught me a bit off guard, and that's a big turn for my opponent. It sends me down to 2,461 hit points. But the Melter there is not doing great. It does need the range, admittedly, but, you know, I was sitting there thinking, EMP and Armor Enhancement are not bad at all. My opponent has 1 Field Maintenance on Sabertooth, which I can turn off, and 2 a million Mustangs with double techs. So you know what? Let's just trust the Arclights. And so on round 7, we double tech Arclights. We can sell out of the melter if we want to, which is not what I do just yet. I actually sell out of my Mustangs there in order to buy more crawlers. I think here I should have sold out of the melting point though. Having Mustangs on the board again when you're playing arcs is usually going to be necessary if you go into the mid to late game, because of things like Shielded Fangs and Loose Formation Crawlers. Loose Formation is still very good against Arclight. It's not as good anymore into other stuff, but it's still very good against Arclight. And Shielded Fang has remained a staple counter to these guys. But yeah, I mean, you can look at the EMP here, right? Keeping these Sabertooth at arm's length, preventing them from healing up. They're still very tanky, but what the armor does is it buys me time. So even though I've got Mustangs shooting at a lot of these Arclights, look at them. They just do not care. So it buys me all the time in the world to just get rid of that Saber that's getting stuck on my crawlers. And I mean, isn't this just a thing of beauty? What's even better is that armor also works quite well into crawler. And so even if there's crawlers that the Arclight missed, it's going to be able to tank for quite some time. Melting Point did alright this turn, but it's still not anywhere near the performance of these Arclights. And so now we strike back with a double tech on turn 7 for fully teched Arclights. Round 8, Vulcan, Fire Badger, both good, but I mean at this point we just gotta trust our Arclights, you have to imagine. Phantom Ray is great, does have access to armor. And yeah, my opponent only has Mustangs there for anti-air. And so here you see me pick up the Phantoms. My opponent goes for the Rhinos, sells out of one of them. And you'll see me use these on the outsides. Click armor enhancement on these as well. So that even if my opponent manages to get rid of my armored Arclights, they're still going to struggle somewhat with these Phantoms. I decided to pick up 2 more. Not too much of an investment because I did get these 2 for free. And just run with it. My opponent goes for Phoenixes here. 4 Phoenixes, thanks to that additional deployment slot and efficient light manufacturing with double techs right off the bat. Range and EMP to try and disable the techs on the Arclights. Makes a lot of sense to me. When something has 4 techs, you're kind of asking for it to get EMP'd. And it's good into the Phantom Rays to an extent as well. I mean, Phantom Rays are still tanky, don't get me wrong. So even if armor gets disabled, they're not very easy to kill. Especially for level 1 Phoenixes. They're kind of behind the curve at this stage of the game. I go Underground Crawler, by the way. I think I picked that last turn, because it adds to the tankiness of the crawlers and it makes it even harder for the Mustangs to clear them. I should have sold out of the Melting Point though, but I guess I didn't really have anything that I necessarily wanted. And I just kind of wanted to see what my opponent does here, right? If you feel like you're in a good spot and you can wait, then oftentimes it is just good to wait and not preemptively like tech units that you didn't really need. Just see what your opponent went for, what is their response. Now I know, okay, it's going to be Phoenixes from my opponent, so next turn I can sell the Melter and use the additional resources to counter whatever my opponent has going. I mean, the Arclights are still just doing so well. All of them now level 5, some of them even level 7 here next turn. And it's a good thing that I kept the Melting Point because we were running out of anti-air. So yeah, Melting Point there, full health. Can't really get EMP'd, I mean it'll get slowed, but level 1 Phoenixes won't have a good time trying to take this down with 70k hit points. And so we should be just fine. I mean, never mind taking down the Melting Point. Like, that level 6 Arclight has 40,000 hit points. That takes a while to kill for a level 1 Phoenix. Round 9, we get Laser Sights. We get Underground Threat. Laser Sight was definitely something I could consider. But I like Underground Threat. It's just so good. Add more chaff to the board, right? Create problems for my opponent. I think both here were fine. Against the Phoenixes, though, maybe I should have picked Laser Sight, because my answer is probably just going to be the Mustangs, which I already had on the board. So I ranged those, and I'm probably going to be picking up more of them. Yep, triple blue Mustang there. It helps with the chaff clear a little bit as well, so it preemptively fights things like the loose formation, like the Shielded Fang if my opponent tries to go for that. And then 2, it gets access to things like aerial specialization down the line, which should help a lot against the Phoenixes. And there are a lot more Phoenixes being added. There were 4 last turn, there are 8 this turn. I do sell out of the melting point this time, because my Mustang should be able to take over its job of anti-air. And we immediately do tech the aerial specialization. Temp range obviously has been clicked. And we just add more crawlers, because right now my opponent didn't address the crawler problem that much. It's still causing some trouble. And yeah, I think at this point they need something else to be able to deal with it. Like, look at that. It takes an awful long time to kill the crawlers. They're even getting close to simply being able to take out some Mustangs themselves. Obviously, this is also the effect of underground threats, but you can see that they're just running in. And the Phantom Rays aren't doing that bad either. The Phoenixes just don't manage to connect to all of them, and so they're distracting the Mustangs for that little bit longer. So you've got like these tanky crawlers piled up on top of the tanky Phantoms, and meanwhile you've got level 6, level 7 Arclights just absolutely blasting your composition. Round 10. We get Advanced Power System, great tech. We get Lightning Storm though, and when your opponent is this low, you kind of need to take it. Heavy Armor would have been nice too, but when your army is this spread out and you don't have things like, you don't have like 2 or 3 like really big units, it's oftentimes not that insane to like go for the Heavy Armor. Obviously, we're all going to be shielding here because we don't want to lose our Mustangs and our chaff. But yeah, my opponent can't really shield or protect the Phoenixes here, so he'll probably lose all of them on one side of the board, and you've got to imagine that that's simply going to seal the deal. Again here, we're loaning, we get the temp range. We get all the levels on those Arclights. We've only got 650 left. And so we use that to buy even more Mustangs. Making sure to position them on the outside here. I also do want to make sure that they run into the shield, because if I leave them too far behind and my opponent happens to like storm over here, I don't want an unlucky lightning strike to take out the units I just bought. And yeah, I mean, look at the lightning storm there, getting rid of all the Phoenixes. Well, one of them does manage to survive. My opponent goes for some fire, but I think that is going to be to no avail. Arclights do get EMP'd. Opponent added those firestorm collars, but yeah, left side looks fine, right side looks good too. I don't have any anti-air left, but there's at least a pack of Mustangs there that is unharmed on the left side of the board, and I think that will be just enough to be able to make its way to the right and finish off these remaining Phoenixes. And I mean, look at how long it takes to kill that level 7 Arclight. And yeah, with 4 Arclights and about a pack of Mustangs remaining, that is going to be all she wrote for this game. This was a real fun one. You kind of need your opponent to play into you, or like have a pack that allows for this type of stuff. So obviously here being elite spec, getting efficient light manufacturing, getting additional deployment slots, all helps me to build this type of board. The fact that my opponent started with crawlers and Mustang allows my Arclights to really farm and level up a lot. And yeah, I don't think the response from my opponent was particularly insane. It was, I mean, Sabretooth was a great response, and I think Field Maintenance, well, it did win him quite a big round. But then after that, he needed something else, like probably something like Fortress with Barrier, maybe. But I was a bit surprised myself at how well these Arclights were doing into the sabers. Range, like, maybe could have done something, but with the like chaff positioning here, my Arclights were almost instantly locking onto them, and with EMP they would lose range as well. So it's a tough one. And yeah, I mean, it shows you what this unit can be capable of. Sometimes, most of the time, you're going to be playing this as your chaff clear unit and nothing more. But every now and then, you get the opportunity to play them as carry as well. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So if you like this game, please leave a thumbs up. If you want to stay up to date with all my latest content, please do subscribe. If you want to check me out playing live, go over to Twitch. Put down below what you think of Arclights. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Let me know. And with that being said, have a lovely rest of your day. Take care and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.